3, 2, 1.
Johnny, what the hell's going on in Iran? Yeah, in Iran, Johnny. In Iran, they're protesting this. Apparently, this young lady was arrested for not wearing the correct attire.
Protests are sweeping across Iran this morning. Iranians, many of them women, are clashing with security forces in nearly 100 cities there. According to state media, 41 Iranians have been killed since the protests began.
Of street protests across Iran that have erupted.
And despite the country's president warning that decisive action will be taken against those demonstrating.
We're out on the streets in over 80 cities in Iran.
Western city of Oshnabay, demonstrators defied a warning by the Iranian army that it would confront what it called enemies of the state.
She was arrested, put in jail, and unfortunately she died. Oh, Jesus Christ.
Spreading in Iran, now reaching a 9th day. Demonstrators angry over the death in police custody of a 22-year-old woman arrested for allegedly not wearing her headscarf properly.
Protests after the death of 22-year-old Masa Amini, who'd been arrested by the so-called morality police.
Huge protests in Iran over the death of 22-year-old Masha Amini, who died after being arrested by Iran's morality police. She was in their custody, accused of violating rules surrounding the wearing of the headscarf.
Which has seen an 8th straight night of protests sparked by the death of a young woman detained by the country's religious police.
Johnny, I don't know whether that regime's going to put up with this for much longer. They're a hard-nosed bunch of bastards. Now, we did a hard-hitting expose a little while back, Johnny, about Iran developing nuclear weapons.
The IAEA to report that Iran has increased the amount of uranium it's enriching to near weapons-grade levels. Nuclear watchdog has said that Iran has enough enriched uranium to create a nuclear bomb in 3 to 4 weeks.
Yeah, well, that's just bloody dandy. But Johnny, are they trying to overthrow the government or what? And if everybody bands together, there's 90 cities or something protesting, then the government, once they lose the bloody support of the army in those countries, they're rooted.
The regime has shut down the internet all across the country as it brutally cracks down on massive protests.
Oh, Jesus, they're a hardline bunch of bastards. And that makes me think the Iranian people aren't quite as behind the regime that the regime would like to think. All you can put it out there, it could be just bloody bullshit. I'm going out on a limb, Johnny, and saying that the Iranian people don't want them to develop a nuclear bomb at all. And I think if the people stick together, Johnny, they can actually do something and maybe get rid of the government.
Over the Iran nuclear deal allowed Tehran to build up that stockpile, but the Iranian regime is facing a backlash from within. Massive protests have broken out against the establishment.
But Johnny, there's 90 cities protesting, and I reckon that's a good indication that half the bloody, or more than half the population is fucking sick of the regime. Johnny, are you saying they want to crush their own people? Crush them?
Western city of Oshnabay, demonstrators defied a warning by the Iranian army that it would confront what it called enemies of the state. Similar protests were held in the western city of Karamabad. Tehran has limited internet services to clamp down on the growing dissent.
The protests in Iran, pro-government demonstrators this time out in force, countering the days of protest after the death of a 22-year-old woman in police custody.
I mean, it's all very well being hardline and all that hardline Muslim with their beliefs and everything, but if you haven't got the people behind you, then you haven't got anything. Johnny, do you think it's going to go that far?
They're raging across Iran despite an unforgiving crackdown and threats.
On the right place.
Well, we could only hope for some sort of reform.
What do you want me to do, draw you a picture?
Now, authorities say she died due to underlying health issues, but her family and many others say that's a lie. They believe she was beaten to death. Clashes have been breaking out on the streets. Iranian state TV says at least 35 people have been killed so far. Now,
but if you're just replacing one hardline bloody regime with another bunch of idiots, you haven't achieved much. I mean, has the regime actually asked any of the people if they want a bloody nuclear bomb or not? Oh, Jesus Christ, you're jumping. And if they had a referendum on how the dress code should be enforced, I think, oh, that's bullshit, Johnny. I think you'd find that the people don't want a fucking dress code at all. They're not going to have a referendum on any of that, Johnny. They don't even have a bloody referendum on anything.
Crowds of protesters gathered hours after counter-demonstrations backed by the government.
We don't want the people having a say in things, by Jesus.
The unrest has spread to towns and cities across Iran. Activists say at least 50 anti-government protesters have been killed by Iranian security forces.
I mean, far be it for us to say, Johnny, but it would be better to get rid of that bloody government, wouldn't it? Iran can eventually bloody be a prosperous country. It's been a shitbox for bloody decades.